I'm Richard Pyatt. We're here today with Jake Steenholt, founder of Skyodin Marketing, and we're talking about what you should expect from a marketing and advertising agency. This is terrific because people really need guidance when they think of this, don't they?
My heart goes out to business owners today because the marketing landscape is so complicated. There are thousands of apps and programs for running your marketing. How do you choose from all that? Well, I feel like through my training and certification, I feel like I'm a partner with Digital Marketer, and I feel like I have a really good structure that simplifies that. First, it depends on what the scope of work is for the ad agency. You might be just hiring them to do social media, but an ad agency, if it's full service and you're hiring them, you should have some type of, you should work with them to make a comprehensive strategy plan.
Sure, if you're using a number of different vehicles, then there has to be some kind of strategic plan involved in that, right?
Absolutely, and I find that once I put the structure, work on the structure with the owner, if they take time to engage with me on it, it's usually about a 24-hour process, and I break it up into 4-hour sessions. We usually start with your ad agency should be talking to you initially about your target audience, what your budget is, what your objectives are. So I have some, because I've worked with quite a few advertisers and clients, I have some things that I lean on that I know have worked in the past, and I kind of repeat those things. Like, for example, if it's a retail brick and mortar business, I usually try to stay, like for advertising budget or marketing expenses, I try to keep it around 2.5% of their revenue, or what we think their revenue will be. If it's if they want to be aggressive, we might get it up to 5%. But if you're keeping an eye on that, you don't want it to get higher than that, then there's a point where it becomes waste. So it's very key that the avatar and the target is identified so that there's less waste when you're targeting that person. I have a lawnmower retailer that works with me, and last year they spent $5,000 on TV in May, which is their busiest month.
Sure.
And he told me the other day he got, as far as they know, they got one lead from that TV advertising. We had done a social media post for them, which doesn't cost anything. I don't even think that we put any money on the ad. It was just an offer on a lawnmower, and they sold 3 mowers from it. So,
wow.
If you think about it, it's May. People are not necessarily as much in their house watching TV as they would be, maybe they're on social media at lunchtime or what have you. Or maybe a good idea would have been, once you know that avatar, in the spring, maybe they're at Home Depot. So maybe you geofence Home Depots so that when they go in there, they're retargeted with an ad on their phone. So the idea is to know that target audience well and try to eliminate waste. So that's what a comprehensive marketing plan can do for you.
And I would imagine sometimes a client might not know exactly their target audience. You can help with that too.
Yeah, as part of this engagement that I do with a client, we spend almost a day just on what that avatar looks like. And there's for businesses, there's typically more than one avatar. So we start talking about, like, if it were a tobacco shop, maybe this is one of their targets might be a guy that is in the landscaping business. He takes a break and smokes. This is a possible target customer for them. So where are they going? What are their frustrations? How can I resolve that? I got one other example on this avatar thing. There was, I have a limousine company in out of state, and doing the research and the keywords, I found out that so many people are asking how much it costs to rent a limousine. So on the website, we put in the upper right-hand corner where they go first, a little form that they can fill out, how many miles they're going to go, and what the destination and day, how many people, and it would give them a price right away. So that resolves that frustration or fear. So when I talk about a day, I'm talking about just who the target audience is. These are the things you have to think of.
Sure.
What their life is before and how you solve those problems. So this is a absolutely critical part of what an ad agency should do for a client.
Another one might be creativity. I know that can be the fun part, but for a lot of us who are business owners, we may not be the most creative person. You can rely on your ad agency for that.
Yeah, absolutely, Richard. My background is from the art side of advertising. I started out, this is a long time ago, before large format printing. I hand painted billboards, so I was actually personally involved on a massive level with what ads looked like, and sometimes just I could tell when I was making these ads as a hand painter. Maybe it just has a few words in an image. I'm like, wow, this is gonna stand out, in the marketplace. And sure enough, they would come back and be a long time client. So the creative is so important. It's important to stay up to the times. Like I'm constantly looking at communication arts. I get their periodicals. I'm always checking in on what's the latest. And sometimes I use that to make an ad look current, but sometimes I'll use it as a disruption. Like, okay, this is what's going on now. What would disrupt that? Because what good is an ad if it just blends in with everything else? Your ad agency should be able to provide something for you that will stand apart and bring that awareness.
All right, and once you have your plan in place, your creative in place, you might have to buy some media and place it. This can be daunting for someone who's never done that.
Right. I actually find that if you can, as a business, just do a few things really well and not hop around, that's the best place to be. I worked for a car dealership, and the owner liked radio advertising, for example. And honestly, I was from out-of-home media, and I have some other biases about what medias I felt were good. But, it made sense what he was doing. He was targeting the basketball games and sports locally, and he's a small local business. So why go away from that? Why not just stick with it and get better at it and try to measure those results and keep building that bridge instead of hopping around like, oh, this is, let's try TikTok, and then you don't finish that, and then you come over and say, let's go back to Facebook. We haven't posted in 3 months. No, stay with a few things that you can do well and keep using them. If you find that you're not getting, the analytics are not showing that it's working, then you shift. Mm-hmm. But when you shift, you got to give it a reasonable shot. And typically I find just about any media will work well if it's where your target audience is, if you work it right. So.
Yeah, it might be tempting when shiny objects come by to want to try something different or something new.
Right, we call that shiny object syndrome.
Yeah.
And it happens to the best of us.
Sure. So you have a plan, you've got some creative in there, you have maybe a vehicle you're using in media. Now that campaign has to be executed, doesn't it?
Right. I've seen, this is crazy to think, but I knew of an advertiser that placed a billboard on a major highway, spent a lot of money on it, and as far as they knew, it went up and ran and they paid the bill. Well, about a month later, they decided to get a report. They needed it for an affidavit. I think maybe it was a co-op ad. And come to find out, the ad never went up. and the company that put up the ad didn't actually build it, receive the money. So these are things that is, there has to be some kind of follow. There has to be follow-up. All these things, there should be, for me, like if I have a campaign running, let's say for 4 weeks on the post date, it's usually typically a Monday, depending on what type of media it is. I'm checking to make sure the ad is running and reporting back to the client. So you don't want to get loose. If your ad agency is not keeping you up to date on what's out there, those are the kind of things that happen.
And so many of us, when we're working on our core business, we're not thinking about marketing and advertising. We're in what we really are there to do.
Right.
So this function that you're talking about is critical. You're keeping track of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And beyond that, when you talk about going back to having a strategic plan that's comprehensive, I like to measure take the entire, what would be the customer journey. There's 8 steps of that, from awareness to engagement by the customer, all the way to do they subscribe to your business, conversion, do they get excited after their conversion? Do they come to the store and say, wow, this is great, I think I'm going to buy more than what I expected, all the way to referring and then promoting your business. All of those stages should be measured, and I like to measure them on a weekly basis. In that way, if you're placing media and you see where, from one week to the next there's no impact, then something's up, and you should be keeping an eye on those things.
Well, and that's what folks really want to know, right? Is it working? What's happening? And you're tracking that, so
Absolutely.
That's helpful.
Yes.
Sure. Some of that has to do with the message too, right? It has to be the correct message and the correct vehicle to expose that message. So that's part of the creativity, I presume.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that messaging is a big part of when I'm putting together a comprehensive plan and I meet with a client. We spend a good amount of time on messaging, and I have copyrighted, structured lessons and that I use to work with a client, make sure the messaging is on point.
Mm-hmm. Well, finally, we would need to have a scope of work if we're a client of a marketing or an advertising agency, right? There should be a clear expectation of what's being done.
Right. Your ad agency shouldn't. You shouldn't be giving them a retainer before you actually know what the exact scope of work is. I mean, this is a huge thing, because you think you're having a comprehensive plan, come to find out, well, all these other things are extra, and you didn't know that. So with Skyodin, I feel like my clients maybe some kind of fade out when I send them, but it's 11-page proposal that marks out, okay, this is when we're doing this. This is when you can expect this. It's long, it's big, but at least we have. It's comprehensive, and exactly what the scope is. This is a really important aspect of what your agency should do for you.
And it helps everyone understand what the expectations are.
Right, and you have something in writing to go back to and refer to.
Jake Steenholt, founder at Skyodin Marketing. If we've stirred up questions for you, you're ready to answer those.
Absolutely.
Thank you.